I am just starting this live session a little early so that I can get Hannah on, who is just coming in a second. So I've been enjoying these sessions so much, I thought I would come and do an extra session speaking to Hannah. So hopefully she'll be on in a minute. Hi people joining. Great to have you here. I hope everyone's been enjoying these sessions so far. Hannah should be on in a second. She says, oh, I shouldn't have all this dead air, actually, should we? But I might start just introducing Hannah anyway, because Hannah really is an example of somebody who has been involved with Amicus their whole adult life, really. So she's going to join us in a second. Hi, Hannah. Now you need to, Hannah, you're on there, but you need to ask to join, request to join. Yes. Hopefully this will work. And Hannah has joined. Hi, Hannah.
Hello. Good morning. Afternoon.
Hi.
I'm trying to get some good light. Hello.
No, I know. It's difficult for me because I'm like on my phone now instead of normally all of my Zoom calls and things are all on the computer, but
I know, same. And then I thought I'd get snazzy with my iPad, but then I realized I haven't logged in on Instagram in forever on my iPad. Let me see if I can.
So I tell you what, the session that we've just done, that's just happened live, was your friend and my friend Gabby. So
I saw a little bit of it.
Yeah, another one from Florida. So Hannah is demonstrating that she's in Florida by giving us some background of the nice
Can you see that?
And stuff. Yeah, but we've got sun here today, Hannah. We've got more sun than we need.
I've been following. Is my video okay? Because I can't see that well.
Your video's fine. Yeah, thanks. So
I have been following.
Yeah, so great. We're going to try and not turn this into just me and Hannah chatting, shooting the breeze, and I want to structure it a little bit.
Which is why we have Margot on with me, because that happens all the time if you just let us chat. Although we should do that one time too.
Yeah, we should just have someone else actually to moderate us both. But anyway. So I was just saying, actually, Hannah, you've kind of been involved with Amicus your whole adult life, almost.
Yeah, I know. I was hearing other stories, but yeah, that it is right. Because I was thinking about how did I first hear about Amicus, and honestly, I think it was probably my sister, and I don't think the internet had been around that long, and she sent me a link with some caption that was like, see, there are other people like you too. I remember being like amazed this did, and it was real basic. Margot, you and I have had website chats to all sorts of levels of sophistication. Back then it really was like websites were just a holding page of like a landing page that just said real basic stuff. And from that, I think I noticed Professor Julian Killingly then was a trustee. And I noticed that he was down the road from me because I was, soon to be studying in the Birmingham region. And I reached out to him. So really, yeah, I mean, decades worth. And I was just, 18?
Right. And what was your first kind of involvement then?
I signed up for the training. I was that person who, what did Gabby just say? Like, contact the people you know or who are around you. Julian Killingly was down the road. So I remember his style. And it was like, well, what do you want to do? What are you interested in? And I was like, well, Professor Killingly knows some stuff. I have to go and see him do his talk at training. And then, of course, the whole world just opened up for me, honestly.
But actually, I'm going to go back a bit further to before you knew about Amicus completely. And why your sister kind of made that comment about other people like you. You were yeah, tell us just a bit about as a child, essentially, how you got involved with the death penalty.
Margot has heard this story many a time over our drinks, but yeah, that's right. I was 13 when I first began to give a crap, basically. When I first learned about what the death penalty was, and some basic facts, like that it existed in America, how many people were on death row, the people who were typically the ones that ended up on death row, and the people who managed to escape it. And that was because of a documentary. I was 13 years old. My sister was babysitting me, and she had made me watch this documentary, which had honestly pierced my bubble, right? And I was horrified. I was horrified at my mother and father too, because I felt that they had ill prepared me for this. How selfish, right? But like, you had not told me about these very important issues in the world, and I don't feel prepared, and now I have to catch up and get over the shock of a documentary. And so I was just compelled to do something about it. And so actually at the end of that documentary, there was I think it was on Channel 4 or something, it popped up with, what can you do about this? And it was an address to write to Lifelines, and be a lifeline. I'm sure everybody is probably familiar with Lifelines, but just in case you're not.
Just in case you're not, Lifelines is a great organisation that basically we stemmed from a lifeliner writing to Andrew on death, which, you know, if you can go back and see the session with me and Jane where we talk about that a bit more. It's a letter writing organisation that gets people to write letters of to support people on death row in terms of having that somebody to talk to.
Yeah, it's
and you were doing that at 13, which is not the normal age of a lifeliner. And also, I was thinking about this.
And I
actually.
should say,
it's quite.
I was going to say, Margot, we should say
Lifelines. My son is 13, and it's like, that's. Yeah. I don't see him.
I know. Well, I do want to say. Well, I do want to say, though, we should say for Lifelines, I do think their policy has always been you have to be over 18. So any mums and dads out there freaking out that they're little ones, we lied. Sorry. And I went through my sister. So technically she was over 18. But I became the pen pal. And honestly, Margot, I think about that, and I chat with my mom, and it is a weird thing. And even weirder, I'm sure, for Sonny, who is my pen friend still, who probably was like, who was this weird little girl writing to me? I can only imagine. But he turned out to play this, I would say, a big brother type role. And so we talked a lot, not about his case details, because we knew not to do that. But just a lot about what his life was like and what being in prison was like. And that completely inspired me. And it is by absolute coincidence as well that I'm now sat in Florida, by the way.
Yeah.
Or not.
Where Sammy
I don't know.
Is, yeah. Well, who knows? And then also, so you attended Amicus training before you started your law degree. Had you decided,
a little bit just after?
Had you decided to go into law by then, though?
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah, dead set. I was already on that criminal defense career path, and honestly, I dodging those massive presentations, right, with the corporate law firms. If only I knew about pro bono work there, I would have been networking my butt off. But yeah, becoming sort of very aware that wasn't my path, and realizing that it was actually in those days pretty difficult to, I guess it still is, to get into criminal defense work, and even more so when you're trying to navigate how you do death penalty work in the US as a UK student, you know.
But you did that, and you have and still have a very successful career in law, and in the UK, for example, you're a solicitor advocate. You have many years of experience, so you kind of knocked that out of the park anyway. And when was it that you actually went out to Mississippi?
With Amicus, 2004. And also, I don't like admitting that, but none of you actually know my birthday, unless just, and now it's going to be a challenge for investigation workshop to tell Hannah what her birthday is. Don't bother looking it up. But, you know, it's funny. I think about it. And even that, I remember my interview, and my interview was with Josh, and Josh was saying to me, "What? You've been writing to somebody for a decade on death row?" And I was like, yes, that demonstrates my commitment, correct? And of course you leave and you never know the decision. But interestingly, you know, that documentary was the 14 Days in May one. So it was set in Mississippi. And of course I just left that to chance. And that ended up going. And my gosh, I miss Mississippi every day. Margot knows this. We have Mississippi groups of friends. I honestly, still send my Christmas cards to the bosses in the office, still saying, I miss you all the time. And it's because it set me on a track. Amicus and that experience set me on a track that was a path I really didn't know how I was going to go down, where I was going to end up. But sitting here looking back, that was the beginning of it all. It opened doors for me to meet people, as my sister said, who were like me. And I do remember that being in training, thinking, wow, there are all these people who are thinking similarly, have the same reaction that I did, and care and want to do something about this. Because I was in my little town, you know, having to order the book, Welcome to Hell by Jan Ariens, because nobody had heard of it. Nobody could get your hands on it in those days. And there was nobody into it. And so that's one of the things I was thinking about too, is like, what do I think Amicus is? I think Amicus is this beautiful, bold, badass organization that provides assistance on capital work. But for me, and it's going to be corny, but it's Amicus became my family, became my mentors, became my friends, my support group. It became a place for where I could get understanding for why I wanted to get into these issues and do this work. And then also when I realized I'd bitten off more than I can chew sometimes, to be my buffer. And with that, that's the way as well, Margot, I have to give a shout out, because I know Mark George has been on already and done his talk, and I hope he doesn't mind me telling you all, but we call him Marky G QC, which really in my head was like some Ali G reference, because that was cool way back when. And then when he made QC, I was just like, this is brilliant, because you've just got 2 more letters added. So he was Marky G for a while. But between him and Professor Killingly, in terms of nurturing and teaching their skills and passing on their experience and supporting, by far wonderful. And of course, I'm sat here chatting with Margot, who's like my best friend. And you know, even then I think about it, like the building collapsed, sadly. I'm sure you probably all saw that in the headline in Miami, and it just made me smile, because when I was actually far away from it, but I had Gabby, who I've only met once in person for like 2 minutes in the jail in real life, you know, reaching out and checking you're okay. You know, and so that sort of gives you a level of sort of the support. And I think Amicus is very good at understanding that you have to, I'm pinching my buddy Chris Chang's words here, you have to feel good to be able to do good very well. And I think sort of Amicus epitomizes that for me. I think we get it right.
Awesome, well said. And getting back to your story, so when was it that, so you went to Mississippi, and actually we'll skip forward a bit, you've also worked, you went back to Mississippi, you went back to Mississippi a few times, and also worked in Louisiana and all over the place. And when was it that you were sort of made that move to working full time as in the death penalty community?
You mean over here in the US?
Well, I mean, even before, because as I mentioned before, Hannah, you did have a practice in the UK, and
Yeah.
there was when was it that moment that you decided to stop doing that and really just focus professionally and career-wise on the death penalty, which is a even more niche than criminal practice?
Yeah, that's a really interesting one. Because I think there was for a while there, which is why I was staying in the UK, and aside from financial issues of trying to study law in the US, but I intended to. I think my intentions then it was to be the best criminal defense solicitor advocate I could in a firm that was in my head then one of the biggest in the biggest cities in London City, you know, top of that game. And I think it's because I felt, honestly, whenever I returned to the US and returned to this work or came back for training, you know, for a couple of weekends, well, 4 weekends in total on the train, typically in those days from Manchester or Birmingham, you know, I felt that there was just that itchy feet feeling. Like it was never, I was never quite happy or at peace, I guess, with where I was. And so it's like that horribly, it sounds horribly selfish, but it was that I wasn't at peace because I wasn't doing what I thought was my maximum potential to help with this issue. Amicus had opened these doors to that, but it's very difficult with the US, UK, you know, immigration and all of that stuff. And so I kept doing my day job, and I kept doing the pro bono work as much as I could with Amicus and doing the trainings until I could also earn and manage to eat by doing that full time. And eventually I managed to do that. I did a fellowship in New Orleans, which was wonderful, but it required a, you know, cut of pay by over 50%. But I did that because I was far more content. I went back, I maneuvered, I ended up working for Reprieve, no longer a fellow now, but head of that project, which had expanded to other areas around the world. So I then got sort of my eyes opened in Indonesia, and the wonderful colleagues that we were helping in Indonesia, a trip to Kazakhstan, you know, Dubai Central Jail, these places I had never envisaged. And honestly, again, I moved from different posts. I worked at the universities with wonderful John York and Sarah. And again, it was that feeling of a little discontentment that I wasn't quite doing enough. And eventually I had a call asking whether I would be interested in a position that I didn't think was quite right for me. Very heavily focused on data, but I do love data. And it's not every day, Margot, as you know, in our business, people don't really get headhunted. So the fact that somebody had asked me whether I would consider a role was pretty funny, and also something that how could I not say yes to that? Plus, it was Miami, and I remember thinking, yeah, actually, Miami is a place that I could live, lay down some roots. It's obviously very beautiful to look at, but very ugly in other ways. So I have that fractious relationship, but it is a place that at my particular age, my stage of career, meant that I could get a little security and be stable enough to really help the people who I wanted to help. So people facing the death penalty, and get into the work. And also in Florida, there was Sonny, my pen pal, but that did seem very coincidental, or, you know, whatever. Maybe it's fate, that loosely pinned fate. But honestly, realizing what the Florida community was asking for in terms of their data, and then coming here and then learning the lessons over a period of 5 years, that's really put me in a position where I've realized I've found how to use my skills in a way that's working, and in a way that the legal community here needs and the people need. And it is working. I mean, it's an uphill battle all the time. You know this. I'm sure many of your listeners do too. Viewers. I don't even know what the right word is for Instagram watchers. But the reality is it's really hard work, but we do see good news. Last week, I had one of the lead attorneys call me and be like, I've got some news. And it absolutely was down to a village of people. It was down to perhaps some luck at the time. But the news was death penalty waived after years of this case just being sat there. So it is making a difference. And the numbers sound less sexy, but I promise everybody, numbers are really sexy. And it's amazing what you can see. Margot gets it because she's seen some graphs and she's played around with some of our figures. But we do this massive data project. We literally are, creating that empirical evidence and testing it with some wonderful social science folks over at FIU. And we really are daily playing around with all sorts of statistical models and collecting this data with the help of Amicus and what? I don't know. I mean, I think we've had over probably 500 attorneys pass through our doors at some point.
More than that.
Right.
And just to put it into context for those people who don't know about the project, maybe 5 years ago you landed in Florida, and to the news that there was a moratorium on the death penalty in Florida state, but not, which I found quite amusing. But
we didn't know, right, Margot?
Yeah. Yeah, after all these years. However, sadly, that has not lasted, and that was because of some craziness in Florida, which is still going on. So do you want to just, if you can, sort of like succinctly just explain the background of where you are? And you're at FIU, which is Florida International University, and you head up the Florida Center for Capital Representation.
Yeah, exactly that. I'm in what we call the Florida Center for Capital Representation, and FIU Law Clinic kindly gives us office space and some in-kind resources to be there in exchange for some teaching. And the really good news is I get to pull in a bunch of the new generation who are interested in this work, and not just law students, folks. You'd be surprised. The majority of people who are coming from me are way across the other side of campus who have heard what we're doing, typically psychologists, journalism. So a real good, wide, cross-disciplinary project we're building. So, and it's called the Balanced Justice Project, but in that, the center is encompassed in that work. And really it's, we kind of expanded a little bit just because we're looking to the future too, because the death penalty is going to end. I am going to see it. We're going to see it, Margot, in our lifetime, and we want the work and the principles and everything we've been doing to apply to other cases beyond the death penalty too. So really, the Balanced Justice Project is all about minimizing the harm of a deficient criminal justice system. And within that, clearly our priority is the death penalty, but also some other work too, like juveniles. And what do we do aside from the data, Margot? We're doing the mitigation work, so life history investigation. We are appointed on a handful of cases down in mainly in South Florida, but a couple where, because of my experience of working with foreign nationals, I'm coming on in that international advisory consultancy component and working with governments to deal with the politics, right, of having one of their nationals arrested in Florida and facing the death penalty here. And then, of course, the education and training. So that's what we're really up to, and what we do in the context of the crazy. This is probably the best way for me to explain this. And it's way more complicated, right? But imagine this. Legal chaos, cases come down. We can send you a video all about all of this stuff. But this is the impact. Almost overnight. I mean, 12 months by the time administratively we'd got through it. But almost overnight, 146 people were removed from Florida's death row because of this decision. And I think that is crazy. right? That never happens. Other than if we go back to the 70s and look what happened when Thurman came down, right? So this was really a time in Florida where it was all eyes on the changes of the law and how that affects the upcoming cases, which nobody knew about, by the way, because that's when we started collecting the data. So we knew who was where facing what. We brought in rules like you now have to give a notice of your intention to seek the death penalty, which was hugely helpful for my tracking. Now I could clearly identify those cases that were death cases. But there was all sorts of litigation. It was very complicated, arguments being made, data and statistics being needed to show the groups and categories of people. Because one of the things you have to remember is 146 is big news. But that left, and my maths may be way off, that left like 220. And yet everybody had been sentenced and convicted under the same sentencing scheme. Right? And a lot of arguments came down to how long ago those folks had been sentenced. So they cut it off at a particular date, which was the date of Ring in Arizona. The other thing they looked at was the harmless error, right? So if you had a particular outcome, a 12-0 from a jury regarded you as harmless, so you didn't get relief. And there's all sorts of issues with that have been challenged, are still being challenged. But if you just look at that as a headline, 146 people off death row within 12 months and are having new hearings. And let me just tell you where we are with that. All sorts of other litigation happened that held it up, but 46 people have been resentenced now. And let me tell you, only 8 of those have resulted in death. So when you look at Florida, the rest are life, and actually a good portion are due to state waivers. So if we want to look at the evolving standards of decency and how things are changing, that was, 146, but let's just focus on the 46 people who were on death row, who the state of Florida said, absolutely, these are the worst of the worst and are warranted a death sentence, to only 8 in the modern era have a modern jury, and a couple, I think, are waivers, honestly, who just said, leave me here, have found that those cases are appropriate for the death penalty today. And I think that is massive news.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Thank you, Hannah. Yeah, brilliant. Well put. So just to sort of, I know that we are slightly tight for time. So obviously, we could chat with you all day, Hannah.
It's the story of Margot and my life.
I should say that
always over time.
We have had a virtual office before video conferencing. Essentially, we used to do virtual offices on the phone because we're very rarely in the same country, let alone the same time zone or anything else. But we have been doing virtual offices by the phone, then on Skype, then on Zoom, and
little did we know that it would become so normal.
So yeah,
we should have followed through with that.
Years.
That would have been our business idea before Zoom.
Yeah, we should have got on that. We were a bit preoccupied with other things. But you're now a trustee with Amicus, so it's sort of come full circle. So Hannah is one of our trustees, and so still we've kind of just to lock her in for life, I think.
And I was very happy to be asked and to be locked in. And so I suppose, because when I came back, I still wanted to be involved, and I think that's a feeling that a lot of Amicus interns experience. It's actually very hard for people to come back, having been exposed to the work and adjust back into your career path. Some people have training contracts and stuff lined up, others don't. And so I got involved because there was a vacancy then in sort of a subcommittee, management committee on the training. And that's what I started doing. I started focusing on the training program, and we made lots of changes over the years. And then Margot walked through the door, and that was a game changer for our training. So if you have done our training, if you have loved our training, please know that is the hard work of Margot joining our team and really helping inject it.
Hannah, I think that it's sort of like, not to just be patting ourselves on the back, but Hannah is, you know, I think that it's such a massive team effort what we do in every scope of work that we do. But certainly Hannah has really shaped training, certainly, and we would always pour over the normally down the pub, but always pour over all of the feedback forms and be formulating the next training the night the previous training ended. So that was our sort of like routine. We'd be down the pub going through all of the feedback and working out how we were going to improve things, what we were going to change for next time, who we wanted to speak, things like that.
I mean, a big part of Margot and my job, honestly, was just making sure that we had, the people in places, that everybody had arrived. And but really that it was quite, I would say that the easy part was getting the people to come and join, because once you'd explained what Amicus training was and what we were trying to do, these amazing trainers were all too happy to come and get involved. And then it became for us, it became just a way of being efficient and coordinating it for everybody. But you're right. It absolutely is again, it's one of those, it takes a village, possibly a city.
Absolutely. And so just wrapping up, obviously folks who are watching, you're very welcome to like contribute, to comment, to ask us questions as well, or ask Hannah questions more like, but feel free to, we will take any questions as they come up in this last couple of minutes before I get told to really get off the live feed because someone else wants it. But just reflecting now, Hannah, what would you say to people maybe who are at the start of their careers, who are interested in going out, but also I do want to just pop, sorry, I'm jumping back a bit, but I do want to just pop back to this idea that when people come back from working in this field, and also, I mean, other people as well who are coming back from, difficult jobs, we've been talking a lot about kind of self-care lately, and how lawyers are not very good at it a lot of the time. And so this sort of relates to everything. And I've been, you feel, Amicus feels a huge responsibility to those people who are coming back from really difficult situations and difficult cases, and you come back to sort of normal life, if you like, normal practice. And really there's no one else that you are able to talk to and communicate what you've gone through, and you do it really, and it takes a bit of time for that to sink in. Personally, I think the important thing is to keep in touch with other Amicus folk, us at the office, but also people who have been out there at that time, because they are the people who kind of understand what's going on, right, in your head. I think that's true. I think having colleagues, which really are your friends and probably your best friends by the time you've been doing it for a few years. I mean, I think of Emma Dakin and Annabelle Timon. I don't know whether anybody's going to hear from those guys, but Emma Dakin was intern number 1 from Amicus in this particular Mississippi office. I was number 2. I think Annabelle was 3 or 4. Was she really the first person in that office?
Yeah. And so I had contacted Emma because I wanted to know what it was like, what was going on, and she was still there at the time. And then Annabelle just popped up one day, wrote an email to my work when I was then in London, and was like, can we please get together? And we just spent the whole night talking about the experiences. And then suddenly the Mississippi Mafia was born, right? And we began to and I know there are other groups, rivals probably, but I know, Margot, you're much more involved in the other groups from the other states. But that, honestly, that's the way to do it, because all of them got it. You have those shared experiences. I think you just got to reach out to the people around you for that support. And I hear people like, well, my partner or whatever your living situation is, isn't in this work, so can't possibly understand. That is true to some extent, but it doesn't mean that they don't understand that the work is difficult. So I think you go to your colleagues who are in the field for support and understanding, like they're in the same boat, but you definitely can gain those support from people who don't know, but at least get and love what you do, and value you for all the hard work that you put into something, even if they're not a part of it. So I do think it comes down to communications, doesn't it? Reaching out,
reach out,
keeping
definitely.
grounded. Absolutely. And I mean, Margot, I can't, it's funny doing this live, but I want people to know, because you asked the question, like, I can't thank Margot enough for the amount of times that I have called and we've cried together, we've laughed together, we've ranted, or mainly that was me when Margot patiently listened, but anything kind of goes. And when you find those people, they're your hooks, they're your safety, and you give back by being that for them and for someone else. I always remember as well, I know we've got to wrap up, but Ray Charles Carter, and anyone who's Mississippi bound will know and remember Ray from the day. Ray had us round for Thanksgiving, and we do the whole, we do the Yorkshire pudding thing, right? I completely mess it up, but Ray won't know anyway because he's never had it. And we have this big spread, and it's wonderful. So kind of him. He was an attorney in the office. Also, a Black attorney in the office who was one of the first rounds when they ended desegregation in Mississippi. So he was one of those first Black young boys plopped into a white school. And so I tell you that not to just make it about race, but so you understand the context of the struggle that he had and the work he was doing, and just how brilliant a human he was, to then at the end of all of that say to some kids that, quite frankly, were doing their best, but he didn't need to put the energy into us because we were going home in a few months' time, to come to his house and now entertain them on Thanksgiving. But he said to me, I said, I'll be forever in your debt for this experience. And he said, no, you won't, because you pay your debt by giving it to someone else. And I that stayed with me, and I think that is probably the best advice, right? You give and you receive, keep the world spinning like that, and then we're going to all be better off for it. And for anybody who's, Margot, you began that question with sort of advice for young people. Anybody who's interested in death penalty, Amicus, right? That is in the previous session. You've kind of found it if you're listening to this. So you're already in the right place. And the other thing is, I would just follow what you're interested in. That's my advice. Don't succumb to pressure of finances. You do have to consider them. But ultimately, if you follow what you're interested in, you're going to be happier.
Well, we're actually just about to hear from Pan, actually, from Linklaters. Cool. So he's going to be possibly talking about the FCCR project too, because he's one of the he was one of the sort of first attorneys from a firm to get involved, and he went through all of our various teething problems with us as well.
Oh my God.
Which he may or may not highlight, I don't know, but it was quite a struggle to start off with, and him and Linklaters were incredibly patient and committed to help us. And I should say there's sort of let me just highlight that it's all of these lawyers who are feeding into these projects now, and the clients at the end of the day are the ones that are also there receiving that help, and that's essentially what it's all about. And I think that everyone at Hannah's a great example of people who really care and want to make a difference, and it's growing this community of lawyers and people who are interested in this issue through Amicus, but through other means as well, and just awareness of this situation and injustices, not just on death penalty, in society and beyond, which we'll be talking about more as well. So thank you, Hannah, for your lifetime commitment. We don't require a lifetime commitment from everybody, Um, and yeah, that support network as well, I should reiterate, is super, super important. But thanks for taking the
Brilliant.
time in your morning
It's a pleasure.
in
Thank you for
sunny
inviting me.
Miami. From sunny England to sunny Miami.
I know, right? Right. Enjoy the weather, folks, and thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. I'm going to end now, but thanks, everybody, for listening. Okay, bye.